Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. This is finally Protour Ixalan weekend. Feels like we've waited forever, but we saw day one of the competition. Whole lot of energy decks. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't watched it yet. About a half of the field or so, if you put all the energy decks together, are making up, at least made up day one. And then, of course, Ramanap Red also had a pretty good showing, and a lot of the other newer decks are in there too. They're in the mix, so we'll have to see how things pan out over the course of day two. So with that being said, I do think there's going to be some changes in the market over the next 24-48 hours, and we will do a special edition of the Market Watch that just features Standard early next week, so stay tuned for that. But for today, we're going to talk about all things Standard, Modern, Legacy, and a few notable Commander cards as well as we go through. Now, quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support the channel, help us to keep making videos, and one of which is our Patreon page, where you can find details as to how to acquire some of these classic art tokens, most recently the treasure token we've been able to put together. Also, you'll find some product links for Amazon products down below. If you make any purchases, once you go through those links, we'll get a small percentage. And finally, like you heard at the top of the show, Flipside Gaming, of course, gives us a promo code for our viewers. You can save some money there, support the channel at the same time. They're doing pre-orders right now for Iconic Masters. So that being said, let's get into it. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to start off with Standard with the top 5 cards that lost value this week. Coming at number 5, Tezzeret the Schemer, down 57 cents to 8.53. Okay, Tezzeret had a little bit of a bump a few weeks back when there was hope for that improvised deck. Unfortunately, the improvised deck not doing so hot as the meta evolves, right? So, kind of sad to see. Tezzeret is still seeing a tad bit of play, though, and those holdouts still playing Improvise, as well as another little niche deck out there which combos artifacts with Marionette Master. And that deck has seen a little bit of success here and there, usually in smaller tournaments. So Tezzeret's still seeing a tad bit of play, but a lot less than maybe was anticipated early on in the meta. So he continues to tick down. Number 4, Jace Cunning Castaway, down 72 cents to 9.27. Now, we've talked about Jace in the special Ixalan editions of the watch every week, so I don't want to spend too much time on him, but unfortunately, he just doesn't have a foothold right now in the format. I think there's some decent power behind the card. You just need the right build for it, and the build doesn't exist right now. Will Rivals change that? Maybe, maybe not. So Jace will have a chance in the future. I mean, this card will be in Standard for a while, but at least for now, he'll continue to tick down, I think, rather aggressively. Number 3, getting into the trials, down $1.24 to $18. And this is another one that we've talked a lot about on the market watches, but long story short, I mean, his value got inflated due to anticipation more than actual performance. The card sees play. It actually sees some modern play and control builds. It, of course, is seen play in the approach decks, and will continue to see play, I think, even if it's in lesser percentages than some of the other cards that we're seeing in this current Standard. But at the same time, the price of $18, that was based on perhaps the anticipation of a potential Gideon tribal build or something along those lines when Ixalan was coming out. So again, even with the gameplay that this card's seeing, it will continue to tick down. Number 2, Hostage Taker, down $1.52 this week to $12.35. Pretty significant. Now, I will say this card, maybe a couple of the others, will stabilize, maybe even will go up based on coverage of the Pro Tour this weekend. So keep that in mind over the course of this weekend and the next weekend. But I will say this about the card. There are a lot of copies out there. This is a rare. It's not a mythic rare, so that limits the amount of potential value this card can hold just due to supply. And that's the thing you have to remember with these cards. As much play as this sees, and yes, it is seeing play, and it will continue to see play. I mean, this is great in the Esper Gift decks. This is going to be great in Sultai Energy, among other places. But once players get their cards, the market gets so flooded in these Ixalan rares that at some point, card just can't keep this kind of value. It's supply versus demand. Supply is much higher nowadays than it was from Magic cards 6-7 years ago, right? So you do have to keep that in mind and be really careful with these purchases. I just don't want anyone to overspend on these cards. So when it comes to a card like this, yes, if you're playing in a Standard tournament this weekend and you need Hostage Takers, well, you're going to bite the bullet and spend $10, $12. That's why these cards hold value the way they do, at least temporarily. But if you can wait, I'd wait a little bit, give it a few weeks. This card will get below the $10 mark. Number 1, the Scarab God, down $1.88 this week to $44.99. Here's a card that's good in similar decks, actually, as to Hostage Taker, and has seen a lot of play, and it's been great, will continue to be great. But even a Mythic Rare, $45, you have to ask yourself, what's the supply versus the demand here? The demand's pretty high right now. Players are trying to build their decks for the standard meta. However, time goes on, the supply is just so big out there, and you do have to keep that in mind. So, yes, this card has ticked down quite a bit this week. It could stabilize or bump up even due to the Pro Tour coverage, but I think after that you're going to see at least a gradual decline in value. $45 is a really high price point for a current era Magic card. All right, let's look at the top 5 standard cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5, Botanical Sanctum, up 34 cents to $10.79. This is one of the big mana-based cards, of course, critical in a lot of the energy decks, which are very popular right now. Number 4, Anointed Procession, up 40 cents to $10.39. So going into Pro Tour weekend, there was a lot of excitement around the token decks. They've done pretty well over the last few weeks, Abzan and Esper tokens. Abzan a little more maybe, but not a huge percentage of the field in the Pro Tour. Now, if some of those decks can be successful, though, in like top 8 or something like that over the next couple of days, well, then there'll definitely be more interest in this deck. But if they fall off and don't make it, even if it's just a numbers game and the deck is still very good, that could hurt some of these singles. So this is one of them. Anointed Procession, it's going up this week. You're going to see still a lot of the cards from the token decks going up because of the hype last week. But this weekend could make or break this deck, so just something to watch closely. Now, I will also mention quickly, this is a great commander card that's helped its value a little bit too. Number 3, Rampaging Ferocidon, up 61 cents to $3.99. The little sideboard card that could, part of the Ramonep Red sideboard. And it ticks up just a few cents every week, but you know what? It's a critical part of that deck, and it's a very popular deck, so it does make sense. It does stand to reason. Now, with this card, as well as the inclusion of Lightning Strike, Ramonep Red, I think, will be a force throughout the meta. Number 2, Treasure Map, up $1.32 to $4.90. So that aforementioned Marionette Master deck runs this, but more importantly, the Abzan and Esper Tokens decks run this. That's why it's going up this week. But yeah, Treasure Map is another card that, again, we'll have to kind of see what happens this weekend. Could be a big weekend for it, or it could be a bad weekend for it. And coming in at number 1, this card's going to have a good weekend no matter what. Vraska Relic Seeker, of $5.45 to $21.74. She stayed really stable for a long time after Ixalan came out. Like a number of weeks, she just kind of sat there and sat there and sat there. People waited. But you know what? The card looked great in the Sultai Energy builds. The card looks great in the Abzan Tokens builds. One or both of those decks definitely will be cemented after this weekend as part of the meta. I think the Sultai Energy decks probably have a pretty fair shake to be able to be a deck that's just going to exist throughout this meta until the next set comes out. So regardless, Vraska is a great card. It's going to see play throughout this meta. It will see play in future metas. And because of that, it has a nice increase this week. Expect this to maybe be the card of the Pro Tour, the one that has the biggest spike that we're talking about next weekend or over the course of the next few days. So if you're thinking about picking up copies of Vraska, she's probably on the rise right now. She will snap back a little bit after that hype subsides, but I do think she's going to be a big player for some time to come. Expect her to hold a decent value for a while. All right, let's move on to Modern. There's actually a lot of stuff going on. So let's start off with the cards that lost value this week. Coming in at number 5, Chalice of the Void from Mirrodin, down $1.67 to $78.90. This card's been trending down recently. I'm not really surprised by that because it had some aggressive spiking at the beginning of the summer and then in the springtime. So it feels like this is a snapback that just never happened that should have happened. So the card has been going down a little bit. I mean, it's still a $75, $80 card, which is pretty crazy. But I do think maybe it's a little soft right now too because we don't know what's in Masters 25, which comes out in March. I think some people are thinking that this card could see a reprint. Number 4, Ancestral Vision from Time Spiral, down $1.77 to $31.79. So this is a card that we know is being reprinted in Iconic Masters, which now is just a few weeks away. And this card's coming back as a rare with new art, though, I will say, but the original version, of course, taking a hit with that impending reprint. Number 3, Engineered Explosives, down $2.12 to $49.21. This is the Modern Masters version, almost the same story as Chalice here. This is a card that saw some big increases last spring and never really saw a snapback, so I'm not too surprised it's declining a little bit here. And again, could be soft due to Masters 25 coming out in March. Number 2, Magus of the Moon, down 310 to 2574. This is the Future Sight version. Another card that will be included in Iconic Masters, so we know this will be showing up in the set very soon. And again, the original version this week taking a hit. Number 1, was there any doubt? Again, it's Tarmogoyf. The Future Sight version taking quite a hit this week, going down 352 to 105, with the Modern Masters version going down 390 this week to 7660. The big news for me here is that Future Sight version taking a big hit, getting close to the $100 mark for the first time in a very, very long time. I think that's actually huge news. Now, we talk about this card every week quite a bit, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. But again, in case you haven't watched the market watches over the last few weeks, it is seeing a lot less percentage of play, and having it reprinted in all these master sets doesn't hurt the fact either that this card will continue to tick down in value unless a new deck comes along and puts up a big result, or maybe an old Jund deck starts to reemerge as a real strong contender. But if something like that doesn't happen, this card will continue to go down. All right, let's go ahead and look at the top 5 modern cards that have gained value this week. The big news this week is that Humans deck. New build, it's exciting. People are wanting to jump onto something new, and this deck definitely has put up some nice results. You will see its impact on the list in a few moments. Number 5, though, is Liliana of the Val, up $1.57 to $86.91. This is the Innistrad version, and this kind of makes sense for this card. When the Modern Masters 2017 reprint came out, this card just trended down a little bit. It wasn't hit too bad, though, considering that was a Mythic Rare reprint, and it was in a limited release set. So she took a hit, but not a huge one. She's just recovering from that now. Number 4, Kozilek Butcher of Truth from Modern Masters 2015, up 201 to 2754. This card has garnered a lot of extra commander attention over the course of the last few weeks. Even this past week, just take a look at a lot of the deck list sites. You'll see a lot of deck lists posted for Kozilek, commander decks, and such. So yeah, I think this is getting a little bit of a bump due to commander more than anything. And the fact that this particular version of the card was a little bit cheaper, I think it's just catching up with the other. Number 3, Cavern of Souls, up 224 to 5247. This is the Avacyn Restored version. Last week, we saw the Modern Masters 2017 version on the list. I mean, both going up. Now, of course, this card sees play everywhere, but the reason there's so much interest on it this week, again, is because of that Humans deck. Number 2, Ancient Ziggurat, up 545 to 995. This is from Conflux, and again, a huge part of the mana base for this Humans deck. Now, I typically don't talk about foils too much because sometimes the information can be misleading, but I thought this was worth pointing out. A couple specialty foil versions of this card also pretty hot this week, with the Friday Night Magic promo going up $1.96 to $15.38, but maybe more importantly, the premium deck slivers version going up $9.35 to $13.24. Huge increase there to catch up with some of the others. All right, and number 1, you guessed it, Chris Pikula himself, Meddling Mage, the Allura Reborn version, up $6.45 to $16.99, with the Plane Shift version with Chris Pikula's likeness of $12.26 to $22.49. Great card, has seen play, but it's the Humans deck that is really driving this price increase this week. Now, I have noticed some of the Humans cards are stabilizing a little bit over the last couple days. I think it's just due to the fact that maybe a lot of people are picking them up or getting them, but also, too, when cards spike like this, the players that had a bunch of these sitting around in boxes or in their binders will go ahead and start putting them up for sale. So you're going to see that a little bit, maybe a quick downshift. But if the deck continues to perform well, watch these cards because they will have some long-term growth, no doubt. And again, I did want to point out one other specialty foil, and that is Meddling Mage, which was a Judge's promo of $28.75 this week to $49.99. So I typically don't talk too much about these type of promos and foils because there's not always a ton of them just out there in the live marketplace, which can lead to some really misleading numbers. So I want to be careful about that because a lot of times people will ask me, why don't I talk more about foils? But sometimes what will happen is because there's such a low quantity of certain ones out there that if someone buys one or if somebody decides to list a whole bunch of expensive ones, it can really throw off the numbers in Crystal Commerce. So it's not really telling a true depiction of what they're worth. So you have to be really careful. But with these, I looked at them really closely and felt pretty confident with these numbers. All right, let's look at the legacy cards that have lost value this week. A lot of these cards coming off of recent buyouts. Number 5, Mirror Universe, down $20.02 to $249.95. So this card was a target of a buyout, but it was really undervalued. I mean, it was screaming buy me out, and somebody went ahead and did it, and it went up, and now since then it has been declining down as these copies get reintroduced into the marketplace, but don't expect it to ever go down to as low as it was before. That just won't happen. Number 4, Elephant Graveyard from Arabian Nights, down 25.80 to 146.99. Another example of a card that was bought out not too long ago, has been declining over the last month or so as these copies are reintroduced. Number 3, Urnum Jin, down 32.80 to 309. This is another buyout, which is coming back to the market. This one, not even a reserve list card. So, I mean, somebody had the guts to go ahead and buy this thing out. It looks like maybe it's still paid off for them anyway. But yeah, you can find cheaper versions of the card. It's just with these old Arabian Nights sets. Again, I was talking about supply and demand earlier. The demand for a card like this maybe isn't super high, but the supply is super low. So that's the big difference. Rare things become worth money a lot easier than things that are printed in huge quantities. So always remember that. Urnum Jin, even though, yeah, you know what, I can find cheaper versions of it that are more abundant, but there is at least enough people interested in these original versions that stuff like this happens. Number 2, Gauntlet of Might from Unlimited, down 40.30 this week to 171.29. This card does see 93-94 format play, and because of that, it does have a little bit of a tendency to go up and down. I don't think this is anything odd. Actually, the card usually sits around $200. I would expect it to bump up a little more, probably in a week or two. Number 1, the Tabernacle at Pendrell, down $67 this week to $1,375. This had a pretty nice spike last week. Again, I'm sure it was just due to the supply in the marketplace at the time. It ticks down a little bit this week. All right, let's move on to the top 5 legacy cards that have gained value this week. Number 5, City in a Bottle, of $15.96 to $209.99. It goes to show you how slow the legacy market is. If we're looking at cards going up just $15, $16 is number 5. But this one was the target of a buyout a couple of months back. It's been slowly reintroduced into the market. It sees a little bump up this week, though, and that could be due to the fact that as it gets reintroduced to the market and you start seeing these prices go down drastically, that can attract some buyers sometimes who thought maybe they missed their opportunity when they saw the original buyout. So you're going to see that every once in a while when a card's declining. It will start to tick up for 1 week, and then we'll start going back down again. Number 4, Force Field from Unlimited, up 20.28 this week to 170.34. Normal stabilization for this card. Number 3, Badlands from Revised, up 23.37 to 150.69. Nice to see a Revised card on here as opposed to Unlimited all the time. But yeah, one of the cheaper dual lands, but it does get a tick up this week. Number 2, Candelabra of Tawnos, up 38.50 to 539.97. So that feels like a pretty significant increase, but I don't think there's any shenanigans or anything going on here. When you're talking about price points of $500, $600, a movement of $30, $40 really isn't that significant. It just could depend on how many are available this current week in the marketplace and what people are pricing them as. If somebody put a couple copies out there at a higher price, you see a tick up like this. So you do have to be careful with these cards that are really rare to begin with, because small changes in just 1 or 2 listings could change value. Number 1, Jizam Jin, up $245 this week to $699.97. So some of the same type of thing could be happening here. I don't think this is like market manipulation or anything necessarily. I mean, we'll wait till next week to make that call. But I think what actually happened was last week this card hit a long time low of under $500 by quite a bit. So I think maybe that attracted some attention. The cheaper copies out there could have got bought up just by random people, causing the more higher copies to sit out there and influence the market value a little bit. So I think that's what's happening here. I expect this to tick down again next week. This card was sitting around the $500-$600 mark. I anticipate it will continue to do that. All right, let's look at a few notable cards of the week. I want to start off with a good commander card that we've been following over a few weeks now. This is the 5th ton version of Adelkin Orrery. Still up a little more this week, $1.04 to $14.99. Just thought it was worth pointing out since it has been increasing steadily. Bloodbraid Elf from Eternal Masters, up 203 to 338 this week. Now, Wizards danced around the idea in a very cryptic article a couple weeks back that they were going to perhaps unban something in Modern and try to shake up the format a little bit in February. I'm a little nervous about that myself. I think the format's pretty awesome, and as much as I'm all for unbanning cards and having the least amount of things banned as possible, I'm also not one to kind of make changes when things are going well. So I don't know, this could backfire on them if they do go through with it and the format is still as healthy as it is right now come February-ish, right? But with all that aside, This card is being heavily speculated as a potential card that could be unbanned, so you're seeing increases. The foils did go up quite a bit last week too, so they stabilized this week. If you're into purchasing foils, just stay real close to that market. And finally, our last card is Urza's Tower. This is the Antiquities Plains art version by Mark Poole. It's up 567 this week to 1188. These cards just tend to go up. I mean, what happens, I think, a lot of times is because Tron is such a popular modern deck, you'll find players that are trying to trick out their decks, so they want to go out and get the original versions. They'll, of course, want all of their lands to match because it does give you a slight competitive edge if you don't have to worry about which lands your opponent may have already saw when they looked at your hand and stuff like that. So they want their lands to match. So I think every once in a while, just a lot of people hit up the marketplace for a particular version of one of these Urza lands, and we see a tick up. It's nothing unusual, it's nothing strange, but I think over time, it's a good indication that these cards are going to continue to go up. They're still pretty affordable right now, but all things considered, it's just something to keep an eye on. Alright, with that being said, that's the Market Watch for this week. So we got a big week coming up. Tomorrow there will be a special edition of the Market Watch. I'll probably post it later tomorrow once the Pro Tour is winding down for the day. But what we're going to look at there are some notable undervalued, underappreciated cards from the past in our November Pick of the Month video. And then on Monday, we're going to look at From the Vault Transform because Wizards is going to announce the whole set. So we're going to see the other 12 cards in there. We'll discuss that for sure on Monday. Tuesday, if there's no other news that comes out, we will do our standard Market Watch special edition based off what happened to the Pro Tour. And then I want to start getting into the Iconic Master set review. So that'll be coming up at the end of next week too. So until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.